everyone. So today in this video, I'll be talking about the mathematics standards. So I'll be giving you a small introduction about what mathematics standards are, and I'll be talking about four different types of mathematics standards. The first one is Kansas Early Learning Standards, Kansas Mathematics Standard, standards for mathematical practice and the learning progressions. So keep in touch. So while I'm going through the notes, I'll be highlighting the important things. So we'll get started. Mathematics standards. So what is standards? Standard describes what students are expected to learn in each grade and each subject. Easy. Um, each state Department of Education creates standards for schools within the state. These standards become the basis for the way teachers are trained, what they teach, and what is on state standardized tests that the students take. Without standards, districts and schools don't have goals. By matching what is taught in the classroom to the standards in each subject area, students will know what teachers should be teaching, what students should be learning, and what will be tested on. Okay, so standard, what is a standard? You got it. So the students will know what the teacher should be teaching, what the students should be learning, and what they are tested on. Okay, nothing special. As an early childhood teacher, you need to be familiar with three sets of standards. So, these three sets of standards I'll be talking in detail in this video. So, the Kansas Early Learning Standards, the Kansas Mathematics Standards, and the Standards for Mathematical Practice. Okay, the three sets of standards that we are talking. Okay, that's it. The first one is Kansas Early Learning Standard. The Kansas Early Learning Standards were first completed in 2006, with a second revision done in 2009 and updated in 2014. The standards are aligned with the K-12 college and career ready standards and provide information and guidance to early childhood providers and teachers, including early primary grade teachers, on the developmental sequence of learning for children from birth through kindergarten, promoting continuity between early childhood years and primary grades. So, what is the thing that is provided from this? It provides the Kansas Early Learning Standard provides information, guidance to early childhood providers and teachers, including early primary grade teachers on developmental sequences of learning for children from birth to kindergarten. So this is important. This is the purpose of Kansas Early Learning Standard. It is a dynamic resource that providers and teachers will be able to use as they plan activities for and engage in conversations with young children and their families around early learning. The Kansas Early Learning Standards are statements describing the skills and knowledge that young children aged from birth through 5 should know and be able to do as a result of participating in high quality early childhood programs. So this is they have given a definition for what Kansas Early Learning Standards is. Yeah. The statements describing skills and knowledge that young children from birth to 5 years should know and should be able to do as a result of participating in high quality early childhood programs. This knowledge and the ability provides the foundation for future success in kindergartens and later in life. Such continuity can facilitate smooth transitions and clarify communication between programs both vertically and horizontally. This alignment with K-12 supports school readiness as well as school success. I think you got a good understanding about what Kansas Early Learning Standard is. Now we'll go in detail for this. Kansas Early Learning Mathematics Knowledge. Still in the same type of standard, but underneath that, there is something called mathematical knowledge. It's the standards for early learning in general, but they have separate categories for separate subjects. So this is for the mathematics knowledge. Research shows that young children can do mathematics and solve problems. Long before entering school, young children explore and use mathematics and do it naturally. Children at play begins to learn essential math skills such as counting, quality, addition, subtraction, estimation, planning, patterns, classification, and measurements. They compare, notice similarities and differences, group toys and materials. This ability to organize information into categories, quantify data, and solve problems helps children learn about time, space, and numbers. Over time, they develop the vocabulary and skills to measure, describe patterns, express order and position, and describe relationship between objects in the environment. So, what they say is research has found that children is involved in mathematics and do mathematics and solve problems way before they start school. They involve in counting, quality addition, subtraction, estimation, planning, pattern, classifications, and measurements in their day-to-day activities at home, in the playground, in the play areas, etc. So, like being able to organize information into categories, quantifying data, and solving problems help children to learn about time space. So, over time, by involving in these things, they develop the vocabulary and skills to measure, describe patterns, express order and position, describe relationship between objects in the environment. Okay. So mathematics helps children make sense of the physical and social worlds around them. They naturally incorporate maths as they make comments such as, he has more than I do. That won't fit in there, it's too big. I can't move it, it's too heavy. So, using these kinds of words, if I highlight more, he's comparing it with something else more. That won't fit in there, it's too big. If a child is using the words like big, small, more, less, too heavy, too light, that means the child is having a sense of comparing things or is used to this vocabulary that is used in measurements or sorting or counting the words if your child is using words that are related to early mathematics or comparing or sequencing sorting, that means your child is developing a good sense of physical and social environments around them by integrating mathematics in each of them. Okay, so organization of Kansas early learning standards. So, Kansas early learning standards, the mathematical knowledge, are categorized into four domains. The four domains are the counting and cardinality, operations and algebraic thinking, measurement and data, and geometry. The mathematics content is divided by age levels. Young infants is the children up to the age of 8 months. Mobile infants is children up to the age of 18 months. Toddlers, children up to the age of 36 months. Pre-3 is the children up to the age of 48 months. Pre-4 up to 60 months. And kindergarten is by the end of K. Those are the age levels that are identified in the early mathematics field. So the next one The next type of standard that we are talking about is Kansas Mathematics Standard. Earlier it was Kansas Early Learning Standard, Mathematics Knowledge. This one is Kansas Mathematics Standard. So this is adopted by the State Board of Education in August 2017. These standards define what students should understand and be able to do in mathematics. Asking a student to understand something means asking a teacher to assess whether the student has understood it. But what does mathematic, mathematical understanding looks like? One hallmark of mathematical understanding is the ability to justify in a way appropriate to the student's mathematical maturity why a particular mathematical statement is true or where the mathematical rule comes from. The standards set grade specific standards but do not define the methods or materials necessary to support students. Yeah. So this Kansas mathematics standard is uh, defining what the students should understand, what the students should be able to do in mathematics. They are very clear about what they should know, what they should understand, and what they should do in mathematics. So, Kansas mathematics standards provide information on what students should know and be able to do at different grade levels in mathematics. So that's what I just said. So this is the purpose or the goal of Kansas Mathematics Standard. These standards are guidelines school districts can use to develop their mathematics curriculum. They are not the curriculum. In Kansas, each school district develops its own mathematics curriculum and teachers decide on how they will provide instructions to ensure students' learning of mathematics. Okay. Mm, so these standards are guidelines school districts can use to develop their mathematics curriculum. They are not basically curriculum, but every district develops their own mathematics curriculum and teachers decide on how they will provide instructions to ensure students learning. Okay. So earlier we discussed about organization of Kansas early learning standards. They had four different parts. Now, here we discuss about organization of the Kansas mathematics standards. There are two sets of standards, the content standard and the standards for mathematics practice. So, standards for mathematical content are focused on number and quantity, algebra, functions, geometry, modeling, and statistics and probability. For kindergarten through age uh, to grade 8, the content standards are organized by grade levels. 9 to 12 standards do not use grade bands, but instead have broad conceptual categories. All content standards are organized by domain, cluster, and then standards. So there are some terms that you should be familiar with when it comes to this standards for mathematics content. So there are two sets of standards under the Kansas Mathematics Standard, the content standard, and the standard for mathematical practice. Now we are talking about the standards for mathematical content, which focus on a couple of things like number quality, algebra, function, geometry, etc. And they have also said that these content standards are organized under three levels. The first level is domain, after domain it's cluster, and finally the standards. Now we'll see what this domain, cluster, and standard means. So, domains are larger groups of related standards. The domain is the big idea. The clusters are groups of related standards. At the beginning of each cluster, the bold label is referred as a cluster heading. Standard defines what students should understand and be able to do. So, yeah, the first category is domains. Under domain, there are a couple of clusters under clusters. Each cluster, there are standards, a set of standards. Okay, the second set of standards under Kansas Mathematics Standard is the Kansas Mathematics Standards K8. There are also they have three categories: domain, clusters, and standards. So we'll see and we'll go through each of them. Domains are descriptions of mathematics content to be learnt. These are elaborated through clusters and standards. Clusters may appear in multi-grade levels in the K-8 Common Core. There are increasing development as the grade levels progress. Clusters begin with a content statement. For example, in grade 1, extend the counting sequence. Now, the last category standards are what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. The standards reflect both mathematical understandings and skills, which are equally important. For example, in grade 1, count to 120. Start at any number less than 120. In this range, read and write numerals and represent a number of objects with a written numeral. So these are that's a good example. So whatever we just talked about, the domain clusters and standards is just a little similar to what we discussed earlier. So the Kansas Mathematics Standard document is intended to be a resource to teachers. The document is interactive, hyperlinks are in blue font and underlined, and the red words are roll over words. Hovering over the word provides a definition of the theme term identified. The learning, in addition, the learning progressions are referred through the document. There is no substitute for learning the standards yourself. Okay, so now we have come to something called learning progression. Before that, we'll discuss the thing called learning progressions in detail at the end of the video. So before that, we'll go to our next, the third standard that we are talking on in this video is standards for mathematics practice. So we talked about the Kansas early learning standards, Kansas mathematics standards. Now the third one is standards for mathematical practice. Standards for mathematical practice, also known as SMPs, describe varieties of expertise that mathematics teachers at all levels should seek to develop in their students. The SMPs represent the habits of mind that represent thinking and understanding. So there are six standards of mathematics practice, which we will discuss in detail after this. So the six standards for mathematical practice is: the first one, make sense of problems and perceive in solving them. Second one, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. Model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, and attend to precision. Okay. So now there are two more. Look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity in repeating reasoning. Good. Now we'll talk about the eight standards of mathematical practice one by one. What do the standards of mathematical practice mean? The first standard is make sense of problems and perceive in solving them. This means to understand the problem, find a way to solve the problem, and work until it is done. Your students will basically be using this SPM in every mathematical problem every day in order to help your children make sense in order to help your students make sense of the problems and persevere in solving them allows wait time for yourself and your students. Work for progress and our movements. The mathematics becomes about the process and not about the one right answer. Lead with questions, but do not pick up a pencil and do the problems for your answer. This means that sometimes your students will struggle. This is called the post productive struggle, which is the process of effortful learning that develops grit and creative problem solving. When students come across a problem they do not know how to solve, We don't want them to give up. Instead, we want our students to make connections to what they already know and try different ways of solving a problem. Okay, I think you got an understanding about the first standard of mathematics practice, make sense of problem and persevere in solving them. The second standard is reason abstractly and quantitative. This means to break apart a problem and solve it symbolically in pictures or in any other than standard algorithms. This means that students can contextualize and decontextualize a problem. A student can understand the relationship between problems and mathematics representations, as well as how the symbol represents strategies for solution. If students have a problem, they should be able to break it apart and uh, show it symbolically with pictures or in any other way than the standard algorithm. Conversely, if students are working on a problem, they should be able to apply maths to the situation. The third rule is construct Bible arguments and critique the reasoning of others. This means that your students will be able to talk about mathematics using mathematical language, vocabulary to support and oppose the work of anger. The students can help, teachers can help students construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others by posting mathematical vocabulary and expert students to use it. Encourage students' disclosure and make sure that your classroom environment is a safer place for students to share and discuss ideas. So that is the third reason. Okay, so the theme that I read was about the second standard, which is reason abstractly and quantitatively. So I think you got an understanding of what I explained and just read through it. The third standard is construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So I'm not going to read furthermore. I will put this note in the description. If you feel like reading more about the standards, you're most welcome. The fourth standard is model with mathematics. Now, before that, I'll tell in brief about what the third standard is. Construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others mean that your students will be able to talk about mathematics using mathematical language and vocabulary to support or oppose the works of others. Whereas the fourth standard, the model with mathematics mean to solve real world problems, organize data, and understand the world around you. That's the basic idea about that standard. Yeah. The fifth standard is use appropriate tools strategically means students can select the appropriate maths tools to use and use that tool correctly to solve problems. Yeah, I think you got the meaning of using appropriate tools strategically means. And the sixth standard is attend to precision means that students speak and solve mathematical problems with exactness and precision. The seventh one, look for and make use of structure means to find patterns and repeated reasoning that help students solve more complex problems. The final standard is look for and express regularity in repeated reasoning means looking at the big picture while working on the details of the problem. Okay, so now we have there is, this note has a good explanation with some examples for each of the standards. So if you want to get a good understanding about it, please read through it. And finally, I am I said I'll be talking about. So that's the third type of standard that I was going to discuss with you, which is the standards for mathematics practice. So those are the three standards that we wanted to discuss today. And I said at the end of the video, I'll tell you what this learning progression means. So included with the Kansas Mathematics Standard document are reference to the learning progression. So learning progressions is related to Kansas Mathematics Standard, which is the second one that we discussed. These progressions describe the progression of a mathematical topic across grade levels. In addition, they are linked throughout the standards to provide insight into the content standards. So Kansas Early Learning Standard, the Kansas Mathematics Standard, and the Standards for Mathematical Practice. And the learning progressions all provide clarity and specificity to the mathematics we teach. As you plan lessons, you will need to know the standards that define what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. So, this is the final outcome of it. So, why do we need to know about the mathematics standard? Why do we need to know about standards in education? The main goal or the main aim of understanding what a standard is, understanding the mathematics standard is when you plan lessons for your classroom, you need to know these standards because the standards show you what the students should know and what the students should be able to do at each grade. If it's grade one, what other students in grade one should be able to know, should understand, and should do at this particular age. It's more like milestones. So every age, every grade category, they have standards for every subject, not just mathematics standard, but maybe language, maybe sensory. So it's very important to get a good understanding about standards of whatever the subject that you're learning, teaching before you plan out the lessons. So that's the end of it. So I think you got a good understanding about what standards are. So I will put this note in the description. If you want to read more through it, please you're most welcome. So I will stop it there. See you in the next one. Thank you.